I'll start with a short introduction of the company and of myself. Then we will dive into the topic of applied gaming. We will talk about some general stuff that everyone should know, then cover the business aspects of it, the design, and the development. But to kick off, as I said, my name is Wanda O Rly. My actual name is Valtteri Lahti, but I'm doing not only science communication via games, but also as a drag performer, and I'm, well, very passionate about conveying and explaining the joy of science and the joy of discovery and making it understandable. And that's kind of my personal mission, and that's how I found my way into Psyon Games originally. And Psyon Games, as a company, well, yeah, we're pretty big in the applied gaming scene, partly because, well, there's not a lot of competition in the particular niche where we are, but this is also a big thing when you think about applied games, that one of the big challenges is that there are few very well established business models for applied games. So it's something that keeps evolving and searching its place. How do we do this the best way? And yeah, we will be covering a bit about that exploration soon. Psyon Games has been awarded many times. So both our titles, our games, and both the studio have been awarded for, well, not only with game awards, but also by communication awards and medical information awards, and also the company has been awarded in the Reuters event i4 Pharma as a health startup of the year. We were the first game company in the world to win this title, so it kind of brings the understanding that games is something that really is aspiring and inspiring in the health communication segment. And what we do, in our own words, we fuse science and games. So basically, we take well-established, nice game mechanics that work, and we integrate scientific topics, everyday phenomena that people should understand into these gaming mechanics to make them fun and engageful. And within our process, we have partnered with many powerful partners, like some of the global pharmaceutical companies of the world, and also public health organizations like WHO and Gavi. And well, obviously, when you are trying to do science games or health games, you really need to know what you are doing, and you need to be able to convince your partners and your clients about what you are doing. So it's very important to validate what you are doing. And hence we collaborate with some of the best universities in the world, such as Tampere University, University of Jyväskylä, and University of Southern California. But then, let's dive into the topic of applied games. So, what are the very basics that everyone should know? What is an applied game? It's a game that has a purpose beyond pure entertainment. So basically, anything that you can apply for other purpose than just entertainment. And this definition, it's very vague or vast. It covers a lot. So you can make applied games in education, for process gamification in companies. You can gamify tools or turn tools into games. You can basically your everyday lifestyle, whether it's about like health, exercise, activity, or trying to get something done. All of these are processes where applied games are applicable. And yeah, it was said in the commercials running just before the start of the stream that making games is hard. And probably everyone who has ever tried to make a game knows this. And yeah, when you add another layer of difficulty, it becomes even harder, obviously. So when you are trying to make a game that's not only engaging and entertaining, but that has a purpose, useful purpose in addition to that's like another challenge to struggle with. And if you think about the what you need to develop a basic entertainment game is basically you need your game development team, your business plan, and some money to carry it out. But when you are making applied games, you also need substance know-how of the applied area of expertise where you are working at. For us, it's the health gaming mostly. Then you need pedagogical know-how. How do you deliver these messages, these topics that you want to make understandable, and how do you kind of piece it down along the game mechanic and make the entity work as a whole? And then basically industry bridging business knowledge is very important, because when you are trying to fund your project, it's very typical that you will have, for example, investors who are confident in the area of games, or you may have investors who are confident in the area of pharmaceutical business, but then not many people operate in both. So finding the right partners there so that they can believe in your idea and you have what you need to carry it out. So basically, it's very important to network a lot and bring these people together to find the proper business know-how. And yeah, then in caps, networks, team management, and cross-industry investors. So these are the most important things. And team management is there also because it's not only about managing your own game development team, but usually as a cross-production with someone who has then substance knowledge of the applied expertise area. Then, let's dive into the business. So, the funding part is probably the most challenging thing when you think about if you come up with a great idea of a game that you want to make, that this would have such a big impact in the society. But how do I get started? Obviously, you need funding. And right here, I've been trying to kind of highlight that, well, as I said, Psyon Games has won many, many awards. It's obvious that people love what we are doing, that, okay, you are making games that have an actual impact in the society. But it's never kind of a straight through thing that you will get the funding for your next idea. No, it's very challenging, and you need to know what you are doing. You need to know with what kind of people you are networking, and basically how to bring them together and how to validate your idea, even in the very first phase. And right here, I've been kind of titling different ways of funding your project. So the title is up there, and with the green text, I've highlighted some opportunities related to a strategy, and with the orange text, there's some challenges. So if you think about public funding, for example, public funding projects, this is something where applied games are very often thought of. So basically, gamification and games are booming a lot, and often people who are trying to make some kind of impact to society through a public funding project, it's not very seldom that they would come up with the idea that games are big, why don't we make a game? And then they will plan a game, and then they will find someone to carry it out for them, and so on. And when you take on this kind of opportunity, you might find that, okay, very nice, there's a need for a game for a specific purpose that has been predefined, and it's very clear, the plan is already there, you don't have to do it. And there's like lots of these opportunities. So basically, it seems like a space where you could operate as a applied games company. But on the other hand, many times or often these projects, they are ordered by people who don't work in games on a daily basis. They don't have a realistic idea what it takes to develop a game, and most often the scope and the expectations of the project, they don't really meet the funding that has been given. So it always begins with if you are making some kind of offer, that what is realistic within this scope of the project, and whether you can actually get the project yourself, and so on. So this is probably the biggest obstacle, and something where there would be like lots to learn for many people about game development. Why does it take so much time and money? Why is it so difficult? And basically why making games in general is hard, and especially for an applied purpose. This is something that I wish to educate everybody for. So thank you for joining up. But if we move on, there are also other, well, obstacles or challenges that you might need to think about before starting a public funding project. Many times it has been defined that you cannot monetize it for your own benefit, so you are only creating the game for a given purpose and so on. So there's no opportunity to, well, make it sustainable, because after a game is developed, everybody who develops games knows that the project is not over. Then you start maintaining the game and you update the game, and basically the operations keep on going. If there are players, there's no point of just leaving the game be. You really need to take care of it. But many times in these kind of limited funding projects, the past after the project's end hasn't been thought of. So this is also something that you should pay attention to. And yeah, they rarely offer opportunity for scalable business. So if you are working with investors, it might not meet the expectations of the people who have put money in your company. So this is something that you should be wary of. But yeah, there are positives and there are challenges. And I'm labeling them as challenges because they are not written to stone. There's possibility to negotiate around it and go further, but these are usually the kind of prerequisites that you need to take care of or that you need to consider before moving on. Now, if you are working with private partnerships, there are some benefits that don't exist when you are working with public funding projects. So basically, there are much more flexible opportunities to create your business. You can monetize and you can plan for the far future. And most often you also get access to the partners' networks and resources, which can greatly enhance your potential of creating a game for an applied purpose. But then again, there are challenges. For example, many times, just like in the public side, the people who are creating the game with you haven't been creating games before, so you really need to be teaching the client and the partner about how this process works and what are the difficulties and what they may not have covered for when they were designing the budget and so on. So there's plenty of iteration regarding that. And landing a deal takes time and effort because, as you know, developing games, it's not very cheap. It's always about at least tens of thousands and most often hundreds of thousands of euros or million if you will. But anyway, many companies are not sitting on this kind of piles of money just to carry out a single project. So again, managing these expectations is very important. And when you are making your deals, obviously you need negotiation skills, especially if you're working with a big partner who has lots of resources and that can fund your game. They probably have also an army of lawyers that may come up with a contract that might not be beneficial for you, so you need to be able to somehow make your way in this negotiation game, and usually that means that you need to lawyer up yourself. And well, high management skills and personnel is required, so it's largely about developing new business when you are making new games into a new applicable scene where it hasn't been done before. So it's not only about game development, but also, or even more, about business development. And obviously, if you have your own money, then you don't need partnerships or projects or anything like that. You have the freedom to do whatever you want. But basically, even in this case, you need world-class business vision of how you are going to do this. So the benefit of working with someone who is an expert in the applicable area, they usually know the business surroundings and you don't need to study that from scratch. You get a lot of information and you understand what's the purpose of the game, what are the practical challenges that you need to overcome. But if you are only an expert in game development and you are trying to make a new gain new territory in some kind of applied expertise area, if you don't have anyone to consult or to spar with, it might be difficult to kind of land there. But yeah, it's all up to you in the good and the bad. If we continue to monetization, I have made a similar kind of structure. So these are basic monetization models that we are all familiar with. but yeah, I will cover some opportunities and challenges related to them. So if you think about monetizing users when you are working with applied games, it's obvious that you can mimic the working solutions of a free-to-play game. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's just like plug and play in that sense. But if you are again working with the public funding project, it might not be something that you can do. So yeah, that's just difficult. And when you are working with private partners, if they, for example, are aiming the game for their specific clientele, it might not be like easy regarding vested interests that is it okay that you as a game company are monetizing their clients basically, or so on. So, or if you are working, for example, for public good, then it's like, is it ethical to monetize in this context, and how should you do it, and so on. So there are many problems to consider when making monetization for this kind of applied games. If you are monetizing your partner/client, so making B2B business, it makes a lot of things easier. So basically, there are many ways to monetize. You can monetize per use, you can monetize per performance, you can come up with some kind of licensing model or other kind of methods of, well, monetizing your client. But you need to be able to obviously demonstrate the benefits of the game in a clearly quantified way. So this is something that you need to come up with in the planning phase, that okay, this is how the game is going to perform, this is how it's going to work, and this is the kind of validated, proven value that it's going to generate, that the partner is going to pay for. And in this case, well, you need to be very cautious when making the contract, that what are kind of the steps that the performance of the game needs to meet before the money starts running. So in this case, you need to be well, lawyering up in the first phase, I would say. And if you are looking to combine these both, so monetizing both users and the business, then it's a recipe that I don't have for you yet. So I believe that it's crackable, but definitely something that, well, yeah, you go and figure and tell me if you made it. Okay, then let's talk about stakeholders. So here I've made a table of different kind of stakeholders that might be related to your process of developing an applied game. Obviously, you have your end users, you have your investors, you have your development partner, but you might have also represented groups in your game. So when you are working with these kind of stakeholders, it's obvious that to succeed, everyone needs to be happy with the end product. And here I'm trying to kind of demonstrate that if even one of your partners ends up with the frowning face, then also you, in the end, will end up with the frowning face. And if only if everything went better than expected, then you are happy and everyone else is happy. So it's a lot to consider when designing the game, both business-wise, game mechanics-wise, story-wise, representation-wise. So yeah, that's what I'm demonstrating over there. And regarding team building, basically it's important to understand that your team building is essentially tied to your applied expertise. So originally, for example, at Psyon Games, we were thinking that we want to make all kind of science games. So basically, whatever the topic, you can increase science literacy in the society by making a game about it. But our first production, Antidote, which was about vaccines and how the human immune system works, that already got us networked with a lot of healthcare professionals and like people who are in the healthcare industry and pharmaceutical industry and so on. And we started to realize that to be able to carry out these projects, we need to engage them in our operations and basically how it has ended up is that in our board of advisors, we don't only have like people who have been a long time in the gaming industry, but also people who have been a long time in the pharmaceutical industry are trying to pursue this transfer, digitalization of the pharmaceutical industry. So they are kind of the pioneers, and they know how that industry works, and they are the people who have been able to build these bridges between the game and the pharmaceutical industry. So basically, if we didn't have them, it would be a very difficult job to land these deals and do this work at all. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that narrow your focus into a specific area of applied expertise, and yeah, make the most of that there. And yeah, obviously, to cut down the cost, you need to identify what know-how you need in-house, and everything else basically should be outsourced or hired project-based. That way, you use your funding wherever you got it in the most efficient way. So that's the ABCs of applied games business. Now let's move on to design. And at Psyon Games, our philosophy is that an applied game that fails as a game is a complete failure. Obviously, when you are making applied games, you are making games as a tool of engagement for a given applied topic, so that people, when they play the game, they somehow interact with an applied topic that will benefit them in some other area of life. And if the game doesn't engage and reach the people, then neither does the applied purpose come through. So basically, if it doesn't work as a game, it doesn't work as a tool either. And that's why we integrate applicable purposes into well-tested game mechanics. So we are not trying to invent the games all over again. We use stuff that really works for us, like a good purpose. And this is how applicability becomes native to the design. Now, about the process. As I said, it's very important to plan carefully. But what does the planning actually cover? It means that you are thinking about not only what kind of game would be nice for a given applied purpose, but you are actually studying what is the problem that you are trying to solve. So making much more thorough and vast exploration of a given applied area. And then you need to kind of come up with a concept that fits for that, and you start pitching your vision to potential partners and investors. And when you have gained their initial trust, or you get people on board that they like the idea, what you need to do is really get into the study. So with every project that we have made at Psyon Games, it includes some like 50 to 100 page feasibility study where we kind of cover everything related to the game. It's a blueprint. So basically, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? What are the needs of the partner who is developing it with us? What is the market like? Where we are going to launch it? Making all of this in advance, and only then move on to co-development. So basically, the study may take, well, many months, and the better you do it, the easier the development is going to be, and less surprises there are going to be. But if we go into the feasibility phase in more detail over here, it's a thorough background work to identify and understand your clients' and partners' needs. So basically, what are they trying to do? What problems are they trying to solve? Or if it's not a partner, then basically what is the territory that you are trying to land in? You need to figure out who is going to be playing your game. If you are working with a partner, they usually have a target group that they are aiming for, and this kind of sets the goals of the game. Other stakeholders, for example, if you are representing someone in your game, they might be involved in the process as well. What is the market like? As I said, so basically, not only what is it like now, but what can we expect it to be in a couple of years when the game will be out. And any unknown things, basically known unknowns and unknown unknowns, related to the processes, priorities, and anything else related to the game development. And when you have completed your feasibility study or background work or blueprint, whatever you want to call it, then you come up with a game design concept that suits the purpose. Usually we come up with several and then negotiate with our partner or client how that's going to work. And here is basically what we think how the applying a game for a specific applied purpose works. So this is what we call a gamified learning loop. And first, there is a challenge where the player faces new information. So in every game, there's always like a challenge that you're trying to overcome. So here's a place where you can introduce new information. You need to defeat this enemy, or you need to pass this level, or whatever. And what you need to do to accomplish that will somehow put you face to face with some new information. Then you take a tutorial step-by-step training of actually how to do that. So someone or the game takes you through the process, as you know. Then you start to play. So you apply the knowledge that you have just gained and you start repeating it. And when you repeat it enough in a successful way, then you gain a reward, basically new features, whatever the game mechanics can give you. But this is how the learning loop works when the typical game loop is put into a context of new information. And what we aim to prove is that with this positive reward, with just the right type of like difficulty curve that will engage you to the flow experience, you can really impact people and change their attitudes and understanding about the given applied topic of the game. For example, vaccines in Antidote COVID-19. And yeah, what we pursue is behavior change. So we are working with universities of Jyväskylä and Tampere to currently prove this behavior. And we have a paper just in this month, I believe, coming out, where we will be discussing like the epistemic emotions experienced by the player when playing the game compared to traditional learning material. And epistemic emotions are these like positive emotions like surprise and excitement that usually they forecast positive learning results. So this way we can actually prove that games have a benefit as a learning method. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So there's plenty more that we can discover about the applicability of games for this purpose and how the behavior change actually works. And basically this validation has to be done for each game separately. So it's a lot of research work, I would say. But there's lots of benefits. So basically, games are adaptive. As you know, you can change the difficulty. You can make it suit you as a player. And that's why, like, well, it suits lots of audiences. So it's not selective in that sense. And that's repetitive and engaging. So you do the same stuff over and over and over again to succeed in your goal, and that is how the new information can be easily hammered into your memory. And obviously games are interactive. As we know, they are measurable and optimizable, so you can improve the game experience even after the launch, and basically measure anything that happens between the player and the game. So only the context of what the player is interacting with kind of sets the value of the data. So yeah, there's plenty of value to be gained about this learning process or whatever is the applicable thing in your game through data collection and analysis. Yes. Then, lastly, let's talk about development. So, there's only one slide regarding the development. I'm not going to dive too deep into this topic. But the idea is that compared to traditional game development, this is even more important to be engaging your stakeholders throughout the process, especially if they are new to game development, as usually they are, as I explained earlier in the presentation. And development of applied games is largely similar and it's similar to regular game development. So basically, the way you work in agile methods, and basically everything works the same way process-wise. But how do you plan to engage your stakeholders needs to be already included in the planning phase and the feasibility study phase, because this is something that can be a business problem. If you don't know when you will engage them, it's always like a big process to get everybody on board and test the game for a specific purpose or engage in some part of the design. So you really need to think this through before you go into the process. And also keeping everybody informed, keeping a really good level of trust throughout the process. These are the things that should be valued a lot when designing and developing applied games. So having a communications-oriented producer or project lead is super crucial to really engage the teams between your partners, other stakeholders, and your dev team, so that the information really fluently flows through. And it's not only, it shouldn't be obviously only up to like one person, but you really need to design the processes from the ground up to support this idea that, okay, these people might not understand game development too much, and these people have a personal stake of how they are represented in the game. You really need to be thinking about how do we meet all of their needs and demands throughout the process in a way that everybody feels confident and secure and safe when the action actually starts to happen. So yeah, I believe that's it. ABCs of applied games. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda. I guess you can stay here, and I'll go into to the side. Thank you for such a wonderful talk and your insight to the topic from years of experience.
Thank you so much.
We have time for questions, so if you have any questions, we have Aaron there to bring you mic. We already have a couple of questions from the chat as well. But I would like to start with a question to you, Wanda. Maybe a little bit nasty. What would be your dream game project at Psyon Games? What would be the thing that you have kind of dreamed of to do, like a NASA project, or I don't know what it would be?
My personal mission, activism-wise, is definitely something to do with environment. So I would love to make a game about climate change, or perhaps as a wider topic, like the whole eco crisis, so covering for biodiversity crisis and stuff like that. But if we go into not so ambitious right away, then I would say climate change would be my go-to topic. And it's also listed by the WHO as one of the biggest health threats in the world because of all the pandemics and all the things that can come as a byproduct of the climate change. So basically, it definitely goes under our scope or our mission. But that would be my go-to topic. Yes.
Yeah, to have the best impact in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, so more questions. So just raise hand here if you have any questions. I'm gonna use my cheat sheet here. There was a question. Let's take first this and then that one. Okay.
Okay.
If there's a clash between playability, this is like a classic question.
Yeah.
Playability and then the accuracy of science, for instance. What is your decision process of that? This is posed by a student in our pre-assignment.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and unfortunately there is no rule of thumb there that you can apply always. So basically, our philosophy is that we shouldn't sacrifice playability for the accuracy of science. So basically, it's about then questioning that does this mechanic really serve the purpose if we have to compromise about the accuracy of the scientific topic all the time. Like if we keep doing that, then we might see that okay, it's not a good design in that sense. So basically, the level of accuracy comes from the societal topic or the problem that we're trying to solve, and usually that means that you already have, when you start defining your game and start developing it, you have already identified the messages that you really want to, that they come through the game when you play the game. So basically, you shouldn't end up with that problem in the development phase. so that is something that you identify on the blueprint and find your way around it. But usually the things that you need to account for is your partner/client needs. So they usually define that. And then basically, if you see that their needs clash with the playability of the game, then you need to kind of inform them and it needs to be negotiated, or then you need to come up with a different mechanic.
Right. Good. There was a question?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I'm a game design student here in Aalto, and I'd like to know more about the feasibility study role in the kind of like the whole process. So you mentioned it's a lot of work, so coming up with this kind of document. How do you see that in the relation of designing the concept for the game? So is that something that you kind of like get more background information on the topic, or is it kind of like the stage of the process where you actually also do the kind of like concepting of the game, or do you have some ideas already for the game concept before you start to do the feasibility study and kind of like verify the concepts within that? And also kind of like as a business question on top of that, do you already know that you are going to make the game when you start the feasibility study, or is there kind of like decisions with the partners after the feasibility study that, okay, this looks like a good opportunity to make a game, or maybe kind of like no-go decision there that, okay, we did a fantastic feasibility study, but let's not make game out of it. Thank you.
A great set of questions, I would say. Let's see if I can cover them all. So yes, about the feasibility study's role and related to the game design. The idea is that you cannot design an applicable game properly without first carrying out the feasibility study. So basically, the feasibility study provides the constrictions, the limitations, and the opportunities, identified opportunities to which these designed concepts need to kind of match. Obviously, as game developers, we come up with game ideas all the time. We don't always kind of like, I cannot dream about this idea before I make the feasibility study. Nobody thinks like that. So obviously, people come up with ideas, and we have intuition based on our experience that this might work in this context, or that might work in that context, and so on. But this is a rule of thumb. So basically, you need to carry out the study in order to have your constraints that will kind of define for what the concepts are made for. And this is usually, as I said, in the feasibility study, for example, if you are working with a partner who is trying to solve a problem of theirs, they're trying to reach people for a specific message, they usually have like a clientele for their product or something like that. That already kind of defines the target group, both like age, gender, but also like location and so on. So you already get the like rough idea of the market. And then what is the cultural setting that you are working in? If you are telling, for example, people stories and you're making a game to, say, South America, how competent are we as Finnish game designers telling South American stories? So you might kind of identify that, okay, we need some local expertise to design the narrative and to help us kind of understand that what is the everyday life and culture like there, so that we can convey the true feeling and so on. So this is just an example of thing that you would find out during the feasibility study, and without that prior knowledge, it's very difficult to start making games for that specific context. So in that sense, you always need to carry out the study before you start making those concepts. But usually the idea is that when we are working with partners, is that we do both the study and the matching concepts in like one big chunk, and that should then kind of help the partner / client make the decision that do they want to pursue this project. So it's not predefined that the game will be made. Like even if the study shows that it doesn't work, we won't make the game. It's obviously it's about identifying risks and opportunities. Usually, obviously, you don't make a study about the topic that wouldn't work under any circumstances. So you can be nice to your customers and partners and say that, okay, that's a bad idea. Let's not even do the study. But if you see opportunities there, then you just kind of start doing the study as a separate project and help it guide you. And it can also help you understand what could be the scope of the project. For example, what size of an opportunity is it for the business to gamify the problem or the solution to it. So yeah, I hope I covered it all.
That was a very long question, a long answer, but a little bit related to that. So to clarify me that, do you kind of discover the client first, or does the client discover you? How does it typically work for you?
Right now, we have been already kind of identified as a player in this segment. So now we are actually getting contacts and people are interested in the opportunities that what Psyon Games could do for us. And that's great. Yeah. But it hasn't always been like that. And if you think about, like, I tried to give this presentation from the point of view that if you too want to start pursuing applied games in a specific context, what you would need to do, then you would need to do what we did. So basically narrow down your area of applied expertise and start networking with investors and like people in that area who have business contacts who might be able to spark an idea for a collaborative project with a client, for example. This is very important. So yeah, we find each other both ways. Yep. But in the beginning, it's always going to be so that nobody knows about you. So you need to do the work to find the right people. Yeah.
And related to that, there was a question in the chat that what are the typical client needs? And do you kind of have to, are they fully aware of what they're asking, or do you need to kind of work on them to understand what is their needs?
Yeah, so I tried to, perhaps I covered this too fast, but it was in the slide where I was talking about the opportunities related to private partnerships, that there's often a lot of like client education that you need to tell them about the basics of game development, that what kind of resources it takes, what kind of is the development process, or what input you need from them to be able to carry it out, and so on. So yeah, there's a lot of this, and of course the launch. So basically, if they want to launch the game and they haven't done that before, you basically need to walk them through like step by step of the whole thing. So there's a lot of client education.
Yeah, also on their needs, that what they're actually asking from you.
Yeah, exactly. and also regarding the public funding opportunities, what I was talking about, there's always needs to be this kind of negotiation about whether this is feasible or realistic, that what you are asking to do with this given specific sum of money for this specific purpose. So yeah, as game developers, we are usually the only ones who know the reality of game development, and that's why you need to be always kind of explaining the ABCs, hence this presentation.
Did we have more questions from the audience? Okay, so I think that we're going to move to the next one. So thank you, Wanda, for such a wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much for
having me. There were
more
questions, so maybe you can jump into the chat and try to answer some of them online.
Yeah, sure.
So thank you, Wanda.
Thank you so much.